changed quite a bit. Although I have done a lot of community service before, I've never had such an in-depth experience. I felt nervous the first day we had to go and work. I had no idea what to expect, but the advisors were very reassuring. Soon I knew that helping the homeless was going to be fun and meaningful. I was not expecting to feel like this. I learned a lot about what it takes to, what causes poverty and what it is like to live with it. I think this trip will really help me better understand and interact with all kinds of people. We worked in many places during this trip, but if I had to choose my favorite experience, it would have to be the industrial food bank. I enjoyed working hard for a good cause, and it kept me motivated all day. In conclusion, I would like to thank the congregation of the church for giving me such a meaningful experience during this February break. I thoroughly enjoyed my trip to Washington, D.C. this year, and I had an experience that really opened up my eyes. And even better, I made a lot of new friends on this trip. I cannot wait for Puerto Rico next year.
Hello everybody, my name is Spencer Pitts. So this was my first mission trip, and it was definitely a fun and good experience in many ways. I think it was a good experience because it made me do stuff that made me comfortable and nervous before, and I was forced to be a bit out of my comfort zone. I never felt comfortable being around homeless people because I know something can be unpredictable and a bit scary sometimes, but mostly unpredictable, and I never liked having that feeling of uneasiness. On the first day, we went to a shelter to help clean and serve food, and I was not that thrilled about it. The cleaning went fine, and the serving was okay, and I found that a lot of the men that we were serving were very friendly and polite. The next activity we did was handing out food to homeless people on the streets, and I enjoyed that a lot because, one, I like walking around the city, and two, it was heartwarming to see some of the smiles and joy on some of the people's faces as we gave them food, water, and ponchos, since it was a rainy day that day. One of the next things we did was work at a church shelter and help prep and serve breakfast for the people there. After the breakfast, we participated with the homeless in a mini Bible lesson led by the man who runs the breakfast. It was really interesting and surprising to listen to some of the input that people had to say on a certain lesson that was going on. The lesson I was being taught that day was on the peace of God and what it means to you. Some of the answers these people were giving I thought were really deep and thoughtful, and I thought that it was amazing that these people are still able to have such a strong faith, and even after all they've been through, or are currently going through. Another thing I learned is being with one group for 8 days in a small basement can cause some frustration all around, but we always managed to solve problems, and in the end, we came back on a good note. In that 8-day period, I also learned more than I already knew about some of my fellow youth group members that I didn't know, and I also felt that I got to know them a lot better. To end, I'd like to thank the advisors and the congregation for this great opportunity.
On Monday the 22nd, we went to Central Union Mission where we fed the homeless. When I saw them come in, they were happy. I may have just counted how many people, but they walked in with hope, confidence, and courage. On Tuesday the 23rd, we went to DC
My time down in DC was an excellent time. Some words to describe my time on the trip are joyful, fun, helpful, unique, and memorable. My most favorite part about the trip was going to the museums. I particularly liked the museums because there were so many different things to find in each museum that we went to, from touching a piece of the moon, looking at a ton of priceless diamonds, or seeing a preserved giant squid. I definitely saw and learned a lot at the museums. This trip has helped me get to know more about the people that I was with, some that I had never even met or known before the trip. But now I know them well enough to call them a friend instead of a stranger. I also loved socializing with the homeless people at DC Catholic Kitchen. Talking to them was a different experience, not because they had different lifestyles than we do, but because they had all sorts of different interesting stories about how they made it through their life. Being able to interact with them was an experience that I will never forget and has changed my perspective on life and how I will go about it. This trip was a wonderful time for me, and I'm glad that I was able to help the community down in DC, and I wouldn't have done it in any other way.
Hi, I'm Harry, and while I was in DC, I realized that even though giving a homeless person some change or a granola bar might make them happy in the moment, it's not actually going to improve their life a whole lot. And I realized really how much we have left to do as a group, as a nation, and as a planet. We need to do so much more to help these people, because they're the same as we are. They just have gone through a little bit of hardship, and now they're having trouble getting back to how they were. And I've just realized that, well, I saw people that had multi-million-dollar mansions and very nice cars. There were people a couple blocks down living on the streets and asking for a little bit of change outside the subway station. And that just seems like it was something that completely changed my view on this planet.
My name is Dylan Maggart. I went to Washington, D.C. with this group 2 weeks ago. I have never been before to D.C., so I had no idea what to expect. Before this trip, I hadn't done much community service before. I knew that the majority of this trip would be spent doing work, but I didn't know what kind, where, or how much. As the trip got closer, I learned that we would be serving as soup kitchens, and this scared me because I've never done anything like this before. When we finally got to DC and had the first day of work, I realized that it wasn't nearly as bad as I expected it to be. It felt really good to be able to help people. I think my favorite part was the cooking rather than the serving, because it was interesting to see how the chefs at the different kitchens did things. One thing I found very interesting was the differences in the cooking styles between the chefs at Central Union Mission and Our Daily Bread. At the Central Union Mission, the woman combined everything she could find in the kitchen into one dish and served it with a salad. And at Our Daily Bread, about 10 different dishes were made and served with buffet style. Another thing I enjoyed about Our Daily Bread was the opportunity to sit and talk with the homeless, and the opportunity for the homeless to do Bible study every morning. This trip really opened my eyes. I learned that not everybody is as fortunate as me and my family. I'm going to think twice when I complain about something I don't have, and think back to the people I met in DC and the positive attitude most of them had for life in general. I'm so happy I was able to go on this trip, and I hope to go on another one with this group.
Hi, I'm Aaron. I feel that the DC trip has sparked somewhat of a realization of the true side of who and what homeless people are like. I had a small idea before this trip of what they were like from working conversation with you. I had a conversation with a guy who was reading a magazine with a breakfast who emphasized the importance of a good education. I also learned on the steps taken to try to end homelessness in cities, like programs that help people find jobs and cheap housing. I enjoyed walking outside with bags full of food and giving it out to people in need. There were a lot of people at Union Station because of the rain, and they are very happy to receive food and water. Overall, the trip had an impact on my knowledge of homelessness and the steps volunteers take to try to keep it in control.
Hello, my name is Angie, and I am one of the high schoolers who went on the youth mission trip to Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago. When I was first made aware of this trip, I was excited because I had been to D.C. twice before, and I knew how much fun it was going to be. However, I wasn't sure what to expect the community service to be like, as I had never been on a high school mission trip before. I knew we would be spending a good amount of time going to museums such as the Natural History Museum, the Air and Space Museum, and many others, but I also knew that the main purpose of this trip was to help people less fortunate than us. On the first day of us doing community service, I was surprised at how much work we had to do and for how long, but it was very rewarding. Most of the places we went, we were expected to cook and serve food. At one place, we were able to sit and talk to the people who came in to get the food. I liked this a lot as many of them were ordinary people like us, and they were really interesting, and I had some great conversations and got to know a lot of great people. As the week went on and we got to go more places and do work, I started to realize that there really is no difference between us and the homeless, and any one of us could find ourselves in that very position someday, even if it is not any fault of our own. This trip has opened my eyes to how many people there are in need in this country and in the world, and how easy it is for that to become a reality for anyone. This makes me want to go more places and do more work for people in need. I am very happy that I was given the opportunity to go on this trip and help all these wonderful people.
Hi, I'm Maddie, or as Wilson says, Maddie B. My trip to Washington, D.C. serves to remind me of my many blessings. My past trips to Washington were only to enjoy our nation's capital's beauty and culture. Although we did enjoy some of the museums, my view of the Capitol has changed. I now see the homeless looking for shelter among the white granite and marble buildings. I can see the homeless sleeping on the steam grates looking for a little warmth from the chill winter. How alone they must feel. It made me grateful for the simple living conditions of the pilgrimage. It seemed ironic that we would be staying at a place with that name. It was here that we started our journey, serving others that have nothing. The journey led us to help organizations prepare and serve food to those who had none. Our efforts and the efforts of groups like ours provided the only meals these people will have for that day. I admit before this trip I wasn't comfortable with the homeless. During this trip, I realized that they are no different than me or you. They are people regardless of their situation, race, or class. My journey provided some great periods of reflection. It was a great journey in which I had great mentors and friends. My time with Dawn, Randy, Chris, Jane, and Kathleen made me appreciate their sacrifice of their time. I had great memories with my church family, and for that I am very grateful. While in D.C., a group of us had the opportunity to meet a baby panda who was only a few months old. When we weren't seeing baby pandas or serving the homeless, Dawn and I competed fiercely to see who could walk the farthest. We constantly asked each other several times a day, how many steps do you have? I only let him beat me one day. I'm home now, and I am truly grateful for what I have, and I realize I am blessed with a family that loves me, a roof over my head, and great food. I'm also so blessed that I still have my church family. I would like to thank the church for providing me with such a wonderful opportunity.
Hello, I'm Courtney. So this trip to DC was eye-opening in some areas. Homelessness
in these tents alone. It made me fortunate that I have all that I have. The guy we were working with asked a small group of us question. He asked, what makes homeless people different from you? The obvious part was having a house, but once you remove that, there's really no difference between us and the homeless. Some of the conversations I had with the homeless allowed me to see that these people really are very smart, kind, and caring individuals. One of the places we worked helped the DC community greatly. Capital Area Food Bank sent food to 79 surrounding food kitchens. That number is shocking to me. The day we worked there, we packaged about 1,000 bags for the elderly. Previously, I worked at the community kitchen multiple times. Working here allowed me to see how Keene takes care of the homeless population, but DC makes a huge effort and puts so much into making sure these people are okay. My favorite part of the trip was walking around the city and handing out food. We were able to hand out hot dogs, water, and chips to these people, and they were so fortunate for what they were given. Before this trip, I had only talked to a couple of people in our youth group, but after spending 8 days with our group, I'm happy to say that I am friends and a lot closer to everyone. All of the trip participants would like to thank this congregation for your generous support for us and to be able to go on this trip. Those that have purchased gift cards or came to our spaghetti suppers helped greatly. Also, thank you to the Women's Fellowship and Mission Action for their generous scholarship money.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Perkins. This trip has made me more aware of my surroundings. I now have a better understanding of how others live. I am very thankful that I can come home after school to grab food out of the fridge and have dinner with my family. Although I didn't change anyone's life dramatically, the work we did changed mine. Last week, I learned that homelessness seems to be a never-ending issue. On Wednesday, we went to our daily bread. I listened to a woman named Margo. She was very interesting to listen to. She shared her political views with me. Although I didn't have the same political views as her, I gave her my full attention. I was amazed to see all this amount of enthusiasm coming from a woman that didn't have much. She taught me to always have an open mind, no matter what my situation is. Besides the work we did in DC, I really enjoyed the city. I was grateful that we got to visit museums and monuments. My favorite museum was the National Gallery of Art. I admired the paintings and sculptures of Greek gods. Lastly, I enjoyed being part of our group. I am so lucky to have gone on such an amazing trip with such amazing people.
Hi, my name is Patience Canera. During the mission trip to DC, I saw many things and I met very interesting people. The community service aspects brought me in touch with reality and the goodness of helping others. However, the day that sticks out to me the most was the day we first volunteered at our Daily Bread. Our Daily Bread is a church initiative that works to provide a free breakfast to people in need of food. We were sitting at gray tables in the fellowship hall of the church, discussing the meaning behind the peace of Christ. Sitting there, listening to the men and women offer their answers, my heart grew heavy. I was filled with the uncertainty of if I would ever see these men and women again. After that day, what was going to happen to them? For me, that's always the most difficult part about humanitarian work. While you have the joy of meeting new people every day, you never quite know if you will ever see them again. But one thing I do have the comfort in knowing that in the brief time I spent with all the people I met, they made an impact in my life, and hopefully I made an impact in their lives. For me, that is the peace of Christ. We cannot own the sunlit sky, the moon, the wildflowers growing, for we are part of all that is within life's river flowing. With open hands receive and share the gifts of God's creation.
You know that. I wish I could say that the work we did in DC made an impact on someone's life. I wish we'd been able to do something that would make a lasting difference, but we couldn't. Spending 1 week in DC, distributing food and listening to people's stories, did little more than simply make us feel good for temporarily reducing pain by a tiny amount. So I won't say that we accomplished great things during our trip, or that I will be forever remembered by the people I met. What made an impact was not our actions, but the suffering that we saw. Seeing rows of tents pitched underneath a bridge, some of the inhabitants of which had been living in homelessness for decades, made it clear that we must do more. The fact that we could do, ultimately, nothing for these people too, is a sign that this is an ongoing problem that no one can solve in one day spent putting packages of dried figs into plastic bags for distribution. Homelessness does not end after its victims enjoy a free meal. It does not end simply because a man on the street hands another man $1. It ends when there are enough people with enough time to make a permanent impact on the situation. We did not achieve that in DC, but what I saw motivated me to strive to accomplish more. I'd like to thank all of you for allowing me this opportunity, especially because I'm a senior, so this is supposed to be my last trip, but I'm still trying to convince Chris to let me come to Puerto Rico next year. So.
Thank you all so much for your reflections. They are wonderful and heartwarming.